Your tooth is broken. Your jaw is swollen. There is no dentist office down the street, no pill bottle in a cabinet, no emergency room. For most of human history, this wasn't a hypothetical. This was Tuesday. For roughly 300,000 years, Homo sapiens lived, hunted, gave birth, broke bones, and got infections without a single hospital on Earth. And yet the fossil record shows something strange. People survived injuries that should have killed them. Some lived for years afterward. So how did a species with no medicine, no antibiotics, and no surgery manage to treat pain well enough to keep going? The answer is stranger and smarter than most people expect. Start with the mouth. In 2012, researcher Karen Hardy and her team examined the dental calculus. That's the hardened plaque on the teeth of Neanderthals found at El Sidrun Cave in Spain. Trapped inside that ancient plaque were microscopic traces of chamomile and yarrow. Neither plant tastes good. Neither plant is particularly nutritious, but both have documented anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving properties. Why would a Neanderthal chew on something bitter and non-nutritious? The most likely answer is that they already knew it made them better. That single detail rewrites a lot of assumptions. This wasn't guesswork. This was applied generations, and precise enough to target specific plants for specific relief. Specific genres. Trial and error, repeated over tens of thousands of years, is its own kind of science. Now go further back and look at bones instead of teeth. At Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a Neanderthal, now called Shanidar I. His skeleton tells a brutal story: a crushed eye socket, a withered, likely amputated forearm, signs of a hearing impairment. By any modern standard, this man should not have survived childhood, let alone grown into an adult who lived, by some estimates, into his 40s or 50s. Paleoanthropologist Eric Trinkhaus, who studied these remains extensively, concluded that Shanidar I could not have functioned alone in a harsh Ice Age landscape. Someone fed him. Someone protected him. Someone almost certainly treated his wounds well enough. That infection didn't finish what the original injury started. Pain treatment, in other words, wasn't only chemical, it was social. A community willing to slow down for an injured member was in its own way a form of medicine. So picture it. Reconstruct the scene for a moment. A small group, maybe 15 or 20 people, huddled near a fire at the mouth of a cave. One of them, a hunter, has a gash torn open along his thigh from a failed encounter with a wild boar. There is no suturing kit. What there is knowledge. Someone presses crushed yarrow leaves against the wound to slow the bleeding and calm the swelling. Someone else packs the area with ash, which has mild antiseptic properties when the wound is otherwise clean. The man is kept still, kept warm, and kept fed by people who understand that a wound left to fester is far more dangerous than the wound itself. Pain here isn't eliminated, it's managed patiently by people who have watched this exact injury play out before. Now for the part that sounds almost unbelievable, and yet has some of the strongest physical evidence of all: trepanation. That's the practice of cutting or scraping a hole directly into the skull while the patient was still alive. It sounds like torture. In many documented cases, it was closer to surgery. Bioarchaeologist John Verano has spent decades studying trepan skulls from ancient Peru, some dating back over 1,000 years, built on techniques with roots stretching much further into prehistory across multiple continents. What Verano and other researchers found again and again was bone regrowth around the edges of these holes. Bone doesn't regrow around an injury, unless the person survived the procedure, often for years afterward. In some regions, survival rates for these operations were estimated above 50%. Why would ancient healers deliberately cut into a living skull? The leading theory is that it relieved pressure from head trauma, seizures, or severe chronic pain, conditions that, left untouched, were often fatal anyway. This is the counterintuitive twist most people never expect. Ancient humans weren't just enduring pain. In some cases, they were performing early functional neurosurgery with stone tools and getting people to survive it. None of this happened because ancient people were lucky. It happened because pain, in a world without modern medicine, was information that could not be ignored. A toothache untreated could become a fatal infection. A wound untreated could end a life within days. So knowledge of which plants numbed pain, which methods stopped bleeding, and which social behaviors kept an injured person alive wasn't a curiosity. It was survival infrastructure, refined generation after generation, because the people who ignored pain simply did not pass on their genes. Compare that to how most people relate to pain today. A headache gets a pill within minutes. A sore muscle gets an app-recommended stretch. Chronic pain gets pushed onto a waiting list for a specialist 3 months out. Convenience has replaced urgency, and in a strange way, that convenience has also replaced attentiveness. Ancient humans could not afford to ignore a low, nagging pain, because it might be the first sign of something that would kill them within a week. Today, low-grade pain gets absorbed into daily life, deprioritized, medicated just enough to keep functioning, rarely investigated at its root. That doesn't mean modern medicine is worse. It means something has been lost in translation. The instinct to actually listen to pain, to treat it as urgent, specific information rather than a background inconvenience, is something your ancestors could not opt out of. You can. So the next time something aches, and the impulse is to swallow a pill and move on, it's worth pausing for just a moment. Somewhere in your genetic history, someone survived a crushed eye socket, an amputated limb, a hole cut into their skull, because their community refused to look away from their pain. Your tooth might still be broken, your jaw might still be swollen, but this time, you're not facing it alone in a cave with nothing but yarrow and firelight. You have 300,000 years of trial, error, and survival standing behind you, whether you ever think about it or not.